you mean? What do you mean? What do you mean?
I first was a DJ before I was a producer, and the biggest thing to me was that I wanted to be able to play my own songs. And at the time when I started, which was around 2006, there weren't actually tutorials online. So what I did is I came and sat in with a friend, watched how he made music, went home, bought myself a basic PC and a copy of Cubase, and then took it from there. If I was looking back and giving myself advice, so I'm a bit older now, I was looking at my young self and I could write myself a letter. The two biggest things I would say that I should do is one, write a plan. So be like, where am I going with this? I now actually write down, okay, so I want to be influenced by this and this. So for example, by Green Velvet's whatever, and I want to be influenced by something else. And I try and make that my sound for the next year, let's say. The other thing, which is particularly important in this day and age where there's a lot of music coming out, is to only put out quality records. Don't put out the filler. You're judged by every single record. So if someone can look at your catalogue and be like, okay, that's a great song, that's a great song, they're gonna keep on checking. If you put out too many of these filler records, which work perfectly well on the dance floor but aren't unique, people will lose interest because there's already too many artists like that out there.
What do you mean?
So I feel like the tipping point in my career was in 2006 with a record titled The Dance that came out on Dirty Bird. It was played by quite a few DJs across the sort of house and techno spectrum, from Booker Shade to DJ Sneak and quite a few other people in between. It basically just meant that the brand became more recognizable and that more people were checking out the output of Zombie Disco Squad, checking the mixes and checking the couple of other productions out there, and it kind of led to a bit of a hype going.
What do you mean?
So when I first started producing, I was making music on a really cheap PC. I had the worst set of monitors out there. I can't remember who makes them, but they're basically a step up from a hi-fi system. And I had the cheapest version of Cubase there is. The records I managed to make via trial and error were sounded okay. They don't sound as good as my records now, but that would be only natural since it's 10 years later. If I, for whatever reason, somehow lost all of my studio equipment and the small amounts of monies that I've managed to save away and had to go out and buy a new, very basic setup now, I think the bare minimum would be a laptop, a sort of okay sound card, just a 2-channel in and out, and I would probably go for headphones over monitors, and I'd probably go for the Sennheiser 650s plus the amp. I feel like you can get pretty decent results with that. If you were to push me, I'd say that the KRKs, which I have now, which I think are called, I know are called now, the Rocket 6s, are pretty cheap and pretty good. I've always stuck with them just for the simple reason that I know what they sound like. So when I started in 2006, there wasn't a great deal of tutorials online on YouTube or in any form, paid or unpaid for. So most of my knowledge came from hanging out with friends. If you're an aspiring producer or you've been going a bit but you maybe want to up your technique, one of the biggest recommendations I would make to you is to hang out with other people that make music. You're going to be able to swap tips in a much more efficient way than perhaps you would do if you were just trawling through YouTube or whatever. My biggest influence of that is a guy called Stefano Ritteri, who actually used to share a studio with me at one point. He definitely at that time, although now maybe not so much, had an infinitely better knowledge than I have. I think he'd actually even gone to SAE. He taught me everything from compression to limiting and the basics of how to get a decent mix down and stuff. So I'm really hoping that people watching this course are going to take away more than just how to lay out a song. I really want them to be able to understand a bit behind my creative process, a bit behind the thoughts I have when I'm making the music and the general philosophy behind music. I think that it's something that's not spoken about that much. I don't go that highbrow into the course. You know, I'm not talking about Nietzsche and, you know, serious philosophy, but just general thoughts behind the tracks and what I go into thinking it, and just how my general environment affects what I'm making. I'd really like it if people walked away being able to go not only, you know, with some maybe new techniques for Ableton or Cubase, but being able to think about how they're making music and making it more effectively, and how that's going to feed back into their music generally. So generally speaking, in my life and in my career, I have no regrets, because I do believe that you get to where you are from doing what you did in the past. However, in music generally, the biggest regret I have, and the strongest thing I'd push someone who is starting out in actually any genre of music, but particularly dance music, because it's very competitive at the moment, is to write a plan, have goals for yourself and work on it every single day. And that goes right down from musical style, where your musical style, you want it, where it is now and where you want it to be, whether that be technique or whether that be learning something like the piano, or whether that be, you know, studying up on compression. Just whatever it is, just try and have as meticulous a plan as possible. And I think, yeah, that's basically it. Back, you know, when I first started out, I was just doing it pretty much willy-nilly, and I feel that it kind of led to a bit of wasted time here and there.